The town of Fairmont was the kind of place where everyone knew your name. Nestled between rolling fields and quiet neighborhoods, life here was simple. Football games under Friday night lights, homecoming dances, and church on Sundays defined the rhythm of life. For parents, it was the kind of town where you felt safe raising kids. For students, it was a bubble of teenage drama, sports, and dreams for the future. And at the center of it all was Tyler Matthews, the star athlete. Tyler wasn't just another student. He was the pride of Fairmont High. At only 17, he was already being scouted by colleges. Coaches praised his discipline and drive. Teachers described him as polite, respectful, and focused. To his classmates, Tyler seemed untouchable. The guy who had it all. Talent, popularity, and a bright future. But behind every perfect image, there are cracks no one sees. The best friend. Tyler's closest friend was Jacob Hart, another athlete on the team. While Jacob wasn't the star player, he was loyal, hardworking, and admired Tyler. The two were inseparable, always seen together at practice, at parties, even in the cafeteria. Their friendship looked unbreakable from the outside. But what no one realized was that tension had been building for months, and jealousy, secrets, and teenage pride were quietly poisoning their bond. The locker room. On the day everything changed, the air inside the locker room was thick with the smell of sweat and cologne. The team had just wrapped up practice, and laughter echoed off the metal lockers. No one noticed the way Tyler and Jacob lingered behind. No one noticed the sharp edge in Tyler's voice, or the way Jacob's smile seemed forced. What began as a private argument between friends would soon spiral into violence no one in Fairmont could ever forget. The small-town bubble bursts. By the time word spread that one friend had killed another, shockwaves tore through the town. Parents pulled their children closer. Students whispered in hallways. And for the first time, Fairmont didn't feel so safe anymore. A tragedy had struck not in some distant city, but right here, inside the walls of their beloved high school. Locker rooms are meant for team spirit, pep talks, jokes, and sweat-soaked camaraderie. But on that fateful night, the walls of Fairmont High's locker room became the silent witnesses to a violent betrayal. The brewing tension. Tyler and Jacob's friendship had been fraying long before the final blow. Jealousy. Jacob resented the attention Tyler got from coaches and classmates. Rumors. Whispers spread that Jacob had been dating the girl Tyler secretly liked. Pressure. With scouts watching every game, Tyler felt his future hanging on each play. What looked like normal teenage rivalry was, in reality, a powder keg waiting for a spark. The argument. After practice, teammates headed home, leaving the locker room nearly empty. Tyler and Jacob stayed behind, voices low at first. But then the words grew sharper. "Why are you always in my shadow?" Jacob snapped. "Because you'll never be good enough," Tyler shot back. The heated exchange turned physical, shoves, fists, and the slam of bodies against lockers. The metallic clang echoed, but no one was left to hear. The fatal moment. In a split second, things escalated beyond control. Tyler, stronger and angrier, grabbed a piece of equipment, something not meant to be a weapon but now deadly in his hands. The final blow left Jacob lifeless on the cold tile floor. Tyler stood frozen, his chest heaving, staring down at the boy who had been his closest friend. The aftermath in the locker room. Panic surged. Tyler tried to convince himself Jacob was just unconscious, that it wasn't as bad as it looked. But the truth was undeniable. Blood stained the floor. Silence filled the room. And for the first time in his life, Tyler wasn't the star athlete, the golden boy, he was a killer. The discovery. It wasn't long before another student walked in, expecting to grab forgotten gear. Instead, he stumbled into the nightmare. Police were called. Students gathered outside, whispering in disbelief as flashing lights bathed the school in red and blue. Coaches shook their heads in horror. Parents rushed to the scene. Fairmont High had lost more than a student that day. It had lost its innocence. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. The news spread through Fairmont faster than wildfire. Jacob Hart was dead, and Tyler Matthews had killed him. For a town that had idolized Tyler as its star athlete, the truth felt impossible. Parents who once pointed to him as a role model now whispered in disbelief. And for Jacob's grieving family, the pain was only beginning. The crime scene. When police entered the locker room, the scene was grim. Jacob lay lifeless on the cold floor. The weapon, still smeared with blood, was nearby. Tyler sat slumped in the corner, trembling, his face pale with shock. Officers described him as both detached and frantic, muttering that he didn't mean it, but unable to look away from what he had done. The arrest. By the time Tyler was escorted out of the school in handcuffs, the crowd outside had grown. Students gasped, some crying, others filming on their phones. Teachers stood in stunned silence. This was the boy they had cheered for on Friday nights. Now he was being shoved into the back of a police car. The image would haunt the community forever. The investigation. Detectives worked quickly, piecing together the events that led to the killing. They interviewed teammates, coaches, and friends. A picture began to emerge. Rising tensions between Tyler and Jacob. Arguments overheard in the weeks before. Pressure mounting on Tyler from scouts and expectations. But the most chilling detail came from Tyler's own words. In his confession, he admitted the anger had been building for months. He claimed he snapped that night, but detectives weren't sure it was that simple. Town divided. The tragedy left Fairmont High and the town itself split. Some said Tyler was a good kid who cracked under pressure, that it was a tragic accident. Others believed it was murder, plain and simple, and demanded justice for Jacob. Classmates who once wore Tyler's jersey now whispered in hallways, unsure whether to mourn the friend they lost or hate the killer who took him. The family's pain. For Jacob's parents, the pain was unbearable. They had trusted Tyler. They had let him into their home. To them, this wasn't just betrayal. It was unimaginable cruelty. Meanwhile, Tyler's family faced their own torment. Their son, once destined for greatness, was now behind bars, his future erased in a single violent act. The first court appearance. Days later, Tyler appeared in court for the first time. Shackled, wearing an orange jumpsuit, he was barely recognizable as the boy who once stood tall on the football field. The judge read the charges. Second-degree murder. Tyler's head hung low, his voice barely above a whisper as he answered. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, parents, classmates, all watching the golden boys fall from grace. The courthouse in Fairmont had never seen anything like it. Rows filled with townspeople, journalists, grieving classmates, and teachers all packed into the gallery. At the center of it all sat Tyler Matthews, the boy once destined for glory, now facing the fight of his life. The trial wasn't just about what happened in the locker room. It became a battle over how society treats young offenders. Should Tyler, at just 17 years old, be punished like an adult murderer, or should he be given the chance at redemption? The prosecution's case. The district attorney wasted no time painting Tyler as a violent killer. They argued premeditation. Witnesses testified that Tyler and Jacob had been fighting for weeks, and Tyler had once threatened him. Jealousy and rage. Prosecutors claimed Tyler couldn't handle Jacob's rising popularity with scouts, friends, and even girls. The crime scene evidence, blood patterns and forensic analysis showed the attack wasn't a single strike. It was multiple, deliberate blows. This wasn't an accident, the DA thundered. This was murder, fueled by pride and anger. The defense's strategy. Tyler's lawyers painted a different picture. They described him as a troubled teen under unbearable pressure, a boy pushed to the breaking point. Mental health struggles. Psychologists testified that Tyler showed signs of severe anxiety and depression. Parental pressure. Letters and texts revealed that Tyler's parents had drilled into him the idea that football was his only ticket to success. A moment of panic. The defense argued that the killing was not planned. It was a tragic snap, a split second of uncontrollable rage. One lawyer leaned toward the jury, his voice trembling. Do we destroy a child's life for one irreversible mistake? Or do we acknowledge that Tyler is also a victim of expectations, of pressure, of a system that broke him? The families face off. The courtroom grew heavier when Jacob's family took the stand. His mother clutched a photo of her son in his football uniform, tears streaming down her face as she described how he'll never graduate, never marry, never live the life he deserved. Then came Tyler's family, who spoke of a boy who used to read bedtime stories to his younger sister, who once dreamed of being a teacher if football didn't work out. The two families, once friendly through school events and sports banquets, now sat on opposite sides of the room, divided by tragedy. The town reacts. Every day after court, the sidewalks outside filled with reporters. Parents argued openly. He's a murderer. Age doesn't matter. He's a kid who lost control. Are we really going to lock him up for life? The trial had stopped being just about Tyler and Jacob. It had become a mirror of the town's values and of America's debate over juvenile justice. Tyler takes the stand. The moment everyone was waiting for came in the second week. Tyler's testimony. Dressed in a suit too big for his frame, he walked slowly to the stand. His voice shook as he described the night in the locker room. "I didn't mean to kill him," he whispered. "He was my best friend. I couldn't control the anger. I didn't know what was happening until it was too late." Some jurors looked away, visibly shaken. Others stayed stone-faced, unmoved by his tears. Closing arguments. The prosecution urged the jury not to be swayed by pity. Jacob doesn't get a second chance. Why should Tyler? The defense countered with one final plea. If you send him to prison for life, you're saying a 17-year-old can never change. Is that justice or revenge? The jury deliberated for 2 long days. Outside the courthouse, the air was heavy with tension. Reporters swarmed the steps, microphones ready. Students from Fairmont High skipped class to sit on the lawn, waiting for news. Parents whispered to one another, some demanding justice, others pleading for mercy. Inside the courtroom, every creak of the wooden doors made the families flinch. Jacob's mother clutched his football jersey, her knuckles white. Tyler's father stared at the floor, unwilling to meet anyone's eyes. When the jury finally filed back in, the silence was suffocating. The verdict. The foreman rose. His voice was steady, but the words felt like a thunderclap. On the charge of second-degree murder, we find the defendant, Tyler Matthews, guilty. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Jacob's mother broke down in sobs, her family holding her tight. On the other side, Tyler's younger sister cried out, "No!" before being led out of the room. Tyler himself sat frozen, his face pale, his lips trembling. For the first time, the reality of what he had done and what was about to happen seemed to sink in. The sentencing. Weeks later, the sentencing hearing drew even larger crowds. The prosecution argued for the maximum penalty, insisting Tyler deserved no leniency. "He stole a life," the DA said. "He should pay with his own freedom." The defense begged the judge to consider Tyler's age, his mental health struggles, and his potential for rehabilitation. Letters from teachers, counselors, and even classmates poured in, urging mercy. The judge, solemn and stern, delivered the sentence. 25 years to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 2 decades. It was a compromise, neither a life sentence without hope, nor a slap on the wrist. Still, to many in Fairmont, it felt impossible to reconcile. Aftermath for the families. For Jacob's family, no sentence could bring their son back. His mother later said in an interview, "Justice? There's no justice when your child is buried in the ground." For Tyler's parents, the weight of shame was unbearable. Their son's dreams of college and professional football were gone. They were left with years of visits behind bars, wondering what might have been if they had seen the signs earlier. The town's scar. Fairmont High retired Jacob's jersey at a tearful ceremony, his classmates leaving flowers on the football field. Every game thereafter began with a moment of silence in his honor. But the memory of Tyler, the golden boy turned killer, hung over the town like a shadow. Teachers spoke more openly about stress, bullying, and hidden pressures. Parents watched their children more closely, and students whispered about how quickly a friendship could turn fatal. The legacy. The case became more than just a tragedy. It became a symbol of the hidden dangers in America's youth culture. Reporters wrote think pieces about toxic sports pressure, teenage mental health, and the justice system's treatment of young offenders. Some argued Tyler's case proved that teens who kill must face the same punishments as adults. Others claimed his sentencing showed the need for compassion, rehabilitation, and systemic change. Final reflection. Years later, those who lived through it still remember the day Fairmont lost two boys. One to death, the other to prison. The locker room where it all happened was eventually renovated, the bloodstains long gone. But for the classmates who grew up with Jacob and Tyler, the echoes of that night never faded. Tragedy had torn their innocence apart, reminding them and the world that sometimes the real monsters are not strangers, but the people we thought we knew best.